I just think back like, yes, this is what I would have wanted. I would have like wanted to read this. I would have wanted to see this, and I would have wanted someone to talk to about this instead of me just navigating this world by myself, super stressed out all the time because I had no idea what was going on. And every time I met with someone at the bank or at the law office or any like adult in the industry, I was so intimidated and overwhelmed because it was so much patching information together to try to figure out like how much I was going to pay on a mortgage, how much my insurance was going to be, how much the closing costs were going to be. Like, can someone just tell me that all in, like in one small package of information?
This is the Personal Finance Show.
Hi, I'm Bo Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. Liz Enriquez wants you to grow and learn and ask questions about money. By age 21, Liz had traveled to over 20 countries and paid for them out of pocket. By 22, she paid off her university tuition. By 24, she saved over $50,000 and bought a house. By age 26, her net worth grew to six figures, and this year, at 27, she quit her government job after making $10,000 in 1 month through her various income streams. Liz worked hard, kept her costs down, and saved a lot to accomplish all of this by 27. No handouts, no help from her parents, no inheritance. She realized while going through these financial milestones that there weren't many resources available for millennials like her. And the resources that did exist were scattered and difficult to understand for someone who isn't a financial expert already. So Liz created AmbitiousAdulting.com to help Canadian millennials understand personal finances so they can save more, earn more, and reduce the stress about money. Liz joined me in the studio in Hamilton to tell her personal finance story.
Everything tracks back to when I was 5 years old and I moved to Canada. That was clearly a pivotal moment in my life because I was so young and I didn't really know what was happening. And then we showed up and we lived in like a hotel room. There's my family of five in us. We lived in a hotel room.
For how long?
For about 2 months.
Whoa.
And I was like, great, this is nice. Like, this is fine.
This is my life now.
Yeah, I didn't really know what was happening. At 5 years old, you just kind of go with where your parents tell you to go. You're like,
exactly.
Okay, thanks, Mom, for feeding me.
Sure, exactly.
And then we went to a motel, and so we lived there for a few months. And I remember my mom had to like, because there was no stove in a motel. Eventually, like we cooked everything using the microwave, and then eventually the landlord like let her use a hot plate.
Okay.
And I'm like, now this is getting like a little bit sad. Like before, everything was kind of fine.
You're like 5.5?
I was still 5.5 now. And I'm like, okay, like still don't know what's happening, but things are looking a little interesting. Like pretty sure we used to have a stove. But great. So that happened. And then eventually we moved to an apartment. And so we lived there until I was about 13 years old. This was a 2-bedroom apartment, and now my younger brother had been born, so there were 6 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Whoa.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was fine until, like, teenage, you know, like, grade 7 and 8.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not ideal. Like,
yeah, or you went to your friends' houses, maybe, and you're like, you have 2 rooms to yourself, I think.
Yeah. People would complain that they had to share their bathrooms with their sisters, and I'm like... Okay, I'm just not even gonna mention anything
I can't even
about
talk
my life.
to you anymore.
I'm like, so there was a lot of like, and nobody ever came to my house because it was just like way too embarrassing to invite people to my house,
and no space probably,
and I just didn't feel like bringing people to my shared bedroom with my 3 other brothers. I also have no sisters.
Where did you come from before you were 5?
Oh, from Mexico.
Mexico, nice.
Yeah, from Mexico.
Cool. And the reason to move, was there a
just
specific
like, you know,
reason?
Mexico's a little corrupt and like economic
less
instability.
Opportunity.
And my dad was actually working for a manufacturing company that did a lot of work with Stelco.
Okay.
And so
that makes sense.
Yeah, we lived kind of in downtown Burlington. He would take the bus into Hamilton. he had done work in the States, like in Michigan and the Rust Belt and stuff. And he spoke a little bit of English.
Okay.
So eventually, I'm not sure how it happened, but he's like, you know what? I think it'd be better if I worked for like the Canadian kind of counterpart of the Mexican operation, just because it's so much better. They like make so much more. They get paid in dollars versus pesos. Like it was just like a better kind of alternate universe. And so they managed to make that happen.
And so he came over, but they weren't paying him enough to, you know, get a bigger place for you guys. Is that it?
I think they were paying him like a good amount, but then it was just trying to navigate, like, do we buy a house? And I guess it wasn't a lot because it was just one income for the 5 of us.
Yeah, that's it,
or like
right?
One income
even
for the
if he
6
was
of
making
us.
good money, it's still there's still lots.
Even if it was like 50, 60 or 70,000, like to raise
that much.
That much
so you and 3 brothers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and would you say you're the oldest? No.
I'm the middle.
You're in the middle.
Yeah,
okay.
there's 2 middles.
Interesting. So you're a teenager. You're like, what's up with this space? Like, did you want to get out of the house, or how?
I was just like
did you start
really
working?
Embarrassed. Yeah, and I'm
start
like,
bringing money in?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to live in like a 2-bedroom house. I like remember wanting to live in a house like so badly, and that was my number one goal. I'm like, I can't wait till I start working, and I'm gonna buy my own house, and I can finally like live and have my own space. And
so
I don't
kind of
have
motivation
to
get out there.
I'm like, I don't want to live this life anymore because it was just like I had like a great childhood, because when I think back, nothing was like, oh my god, I hate this.
No,
but I definitely just didn't want to live in like a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 people.
I don't know if anybody really does. I mean, for a little bit maybe, but yeah, I'm sure it would get to under anybody's skin for sure.
Especially like getting older, it started getting kind of a lot more like embarrassing, and just wanted to teenage angst was kind of kicking in. I'm like, Argh.
So when did you get your first job then?
So I started working, actually I had a newspaper route while we were still in the apartment, and I remember just being like a super saver. Like I was always an aggressive saver because I just felt like I needed to squirrel away money to eventually get my own place.
Yeah.
So I started my newspaper route, and then when we moved to a new town and we finally got a house, I was babysitting. So that's kind of how I was getting money. I wasn't making a lot of money, but that kind of changed when I went to university. So I started working on the weekends, like at a dorm room, and I was going to school full time. So
what do you do in a dorm room?
I was working with international students.
Oh, cool.
And I had to just supervise them and plan trips for them and activities to keep them engaged. Yeah, it was really fun because we like, look, who wants to go to the movies? Like, who wants to go to the mall?
And because they're not international students, they're so brand new, not really familiar.
Yeah.
You didn't really have this experience because you were 5, but you understood and you could relate. And you could say, hey, I'm not from here either originally, right? But hey, I know how to navigate everything, right?
Right. Yeah, because I would take them to the bank, like bank accounts, and just kind of help them navigate life.
You knew everything. That's kind of a cool position to be in, right? Because you've been here so long that you're basically, are from here, right? I mean, the fact that your first 5 years were just like a lump
I was just a blob.
Yeah. A sack of potatoes, right?
Yeah.
Until you were able to actually, note, then you started noticing things. But yeah, by the time you're learning everything in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's a cool thing to do. So you made a little bit of money doing that.
I was making pretty good money at the time. I think minimum wage was $11 or something, pretty low. And I was making $15 an hour, and I was working full time, like hours, so 35 to 40 hours, because I was staying overnight. Okay. So it was 3 days, like intensive living
like full
there.
days. No one gets paid for that.
Yeah, no, I did.
Paid for sleeping.
Yeah, so I was just, I was 18 and making, like, I had a pretty decent salary and benefits and vacation pay. So I was like, wow, I made it. So
well, what about school? So you're in school?
I went to Mac,
So
McMaster.
You're doing this while you're in school.
Yeah.
Who's paying for school?
I paid for school.
Oh, so by working that job.
Yeah.
Did you, was there any OSAP or anything like that?
So I originally got a scholarship for my first year.
Nice.
And that actually leads to more money issues because I didn't realize. So end of high school, I was having like panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and I'm like, I'm dying. I want to die because this is so painful. And like your chest hurts so much. And at the time, I didn't know what it was.
So really horrible anxiety.
Yeah, horrible. Because I would like just curl up in my couch. My mom had to take me to the hospital because I'm like, I'm dying.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was like a really stressful, kind of horrible period. And then eventually I had to talk it out with my doctor, and they're like, honestly, all your tests are coming back fine. Your blood work is fine. Like your heart rate is fine.
Okay.
It's just a psychological, like, what are you going through right now? So through counseling, they're like, seems like you're really stressed out about money and like trying to figure out your life and trying to navigate like this next chapter in your life, because you're now transitioning from high school to university, and I didn't know how to pay for school.
Yeah.
I didn't have these conversations with my parents like, oh, looks like it's $6,000 to go to school. How am I going to get this money?
Yeah. And then they wouldn't, they wouldn't have it.
There's my 3 brothers, 3 older ones were all pretty similar ages.
Yeah.
They're like, well, like we have a little bit of money for you guys, but you're all going to school at the same time. So you're kind of needing to figure that out.
Oh, that sucks.
Okay, I guess I'll just like go talk to my guidance counselor.
Yeah.
So my guidance counselor was like, you can apply for a bunch of grants. Like your marks are pretty good. You're really active in the community.
Yeah.
Like just spend some time applying for scholarships, bursaries, and grants. So that's what I dropped my math class in grade 12 because I'm like, this is weighing me down.
Yep.
And I used that period to just apply for grants and scholarships.
Smart.
Like I would spend like 30 minutes, half an hour every single day in the guidance counselor's office just applying for grants. So that paid for my full year. Actually, pretty much my 2 years of school.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, would you recommend that high school students
100%.
do this?
People will just assume it's people with good grades and stuff. And I had good grades, but definitely not like genius level.
It was more hustle.
And like I would have to write essays about why I wanted to go to school or essays about my community involvement. And I was just, and some of them were like $200, $500. But I think I had like 7 of them for $500.
That's
great. That adds up. And I got 1 of them for my grades. So they were really mostly about like the niche ones that people don't apply to. Yeah. And I swear some of them I just got by default because I'm like, this is such a weird topic, but I guess I'll write about it.
Were you, so the writing sometimes was different, but were you also able to reuse some of the stuff? Yeah.
Yes. That taught me like that was the most efficient. I'm like, well, they don't know what I wrote for the other one.
That's right.
I just had like a Word document of kind of like my biggest accomplishments and what I plan to do with my life.
Really
so I'm like,
smart.
copy paste and just kind of adjust it like people do for cover letters and resumes,
exactly,
just like tweak it.
Yeah. Make sure you don't put, the placeholders in.
Yeah. But for the most part, just copy and paste.
Yeah. So you went to Mac.
I went to Mac.
What did you take?
I studied geography.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually applied for like linguistics because I thought that was cool. Yeah. And then I switched degrees 3 times. Okay. And I also took 6 months off to live in Vancouver. Wow. I took 4 months off to travel. Like I just did not follow
there's a lot
conventional
to
path.
Unpack there. So you didn't know what you wanted to. You just knew, but you did know you wanted to go to school.
I didn't even know it was an option to not go to school.
Yeah, I can understand that because I felt the same way. Yeah.
Like, of course you're going to go to school. Why would you even think differently?
Yeah, that's what. Well, how old are you?
27.
Yeah, okay. So you're about 10 years younger than me, but I've had that feeling too. And to me, it felt like that's what everyone in high school in my, I guess, education level was saying. Like if you weren't in the stream that was taking you to the trades, then of course you're going to go to school. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's a middle ground there.
Yeah, in retrospect, I definitely would have taken time off to kind of evaluate what I wanted to do with my life, or even a college program, because I'm not really using my degrees. So. Yeah.
But did it actually even open doors for you though?
Yeah, for sure. Because so I was working full time on the weekends, going to school full time. Eventually I switched to part time because I'm like, this is a little overwhelming. Sure. And
part-time school.
Yeah. So I had a year and a half paid off in scholarships. I was working, saving a lot of money because still living like a student lifestyle. Yep. So I paid off second year, no problem. Paid off third year, no problem. I had got a little bit of OSAP, but I paid it off in third year. So I'm like, I don't really need this. So you guys can take your money back.
Okay. You just didn't want debt. You didn't want this money stress, right?
Yeah, that. And also I did summer school and I took a class, and for some reason that made me become a part-time student. And then I didn't fill in the right paperwork for OSAP. And so they gave me a fee. And I remember being really upset about it. I'm like, you know what? Just take your money back because there's way too many rules and I have to wait in line for things and I don't even need it. So that was a good feeling because I walked into the bank and I'm like, I want to pay back my loan. And they're like, okay, how much? I'm like, $11,000. And then they're like, okay. I was so young at the time. I don't even remember how they did it, but I think they just did it all online. And then they're like, okay, here, like we're transferring it now. You're only going to have $300 left. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Like,
Oh, no.
because I was working.
So you had money.
I would have built it back up.
Yeah, okay. You're still, like, you're debt-free.
Yeah.
And it's third year, fourth year?
This was third year university.
Okay. You're schooling part-time, but you're still working full-time?
Full-time on the weekends. And then, yeah, I took 6 months off to go live in Vancouver and
That's
do
when
an
you did that?
internship.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. What internship?
So I was working in a neighborhood house doing environmental programming and planning. And
Cool.
I have a degree in environmental sciences and geography. So
Nice.
I loved that. And I just got to hang out in gardens and work with schools and try to make them more eco-friendly. So that was great.
Awesome.
Then I came back and applied for a co-op at the city of Hamilton.
Sure.
So that was a good paying job too. So before I was making $15 an hour and I was making $18 an hour and it was a full-time co-op.
Oh, great.
So again, working full-time, going to school part-time,
Yeah.
making good money, still living in my student house. I was paying like $300 for a basement apartment
Oh,
that
yeah.
fit
Oh,
like my bed and that's
I did
it.
that once. Oh,
Yeah.
it was so good.
Yeah. And it's great because at the time, like everybody's living in a dodgy house.
That's
like
right.
the dodgier, the better,
Yeah.
you know?
I had to leave one because of mold
Oh.
and stuff. And I'm pretty sure, like, I thought it was spider bites at the time, but
Bed
it was
bugs.
bed bugs.
Mm.
Yeah, now, like, because later on in life, I figured out how I react to bed bugs, and it was the same way.
You're like, oh.
I'm like, oh, man, I had bed bugs and mold. I'm
That's
really
rough.
glad that I left that
Mine
place.
wasn't that bad.
Yeah, so you were in a place that it was good enough,
Yeah.
right? At least it didn't have those things.
No, it didn't have that. Our landlord lived above us, and it was like a nice
that's handy.
family.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I had
they were
that too
super
later
nice.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that because
Mhm.
then they take care of everything, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
they
they're
would
there.
shovel and
Yeah, exactly.
you know, make sure that there was salt on the ground. I'm like, thanks guys. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's probably
super
my
nice.
best landlord.
Yeah.
And then I bumped into him like 3 years after I moved out, and he immediately emailed me like a reference letter because I mentioned that I'm applying for another place.
That's
like,
so nice.
he's the nicest person.
Yeah, maybe we had the same guy because my guy was super nice too, and I got lucky. Like I had great roommates. My basement apartment was really affordable. It was like no windows or anything.
Yeah,
but whatever.
That's
it's
what you
fine.
get
Yeah.
for a basement, right?
$300, yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, I was making money,
So you're
living
working
a student life.
What are you doing in the co-op?
So I was doing marketing for the recycling and composting department.
Ah, nice.
Mhm.
I got some of your stuff up there.
Yeah. So all of the pamphlets that say like how to recycle,
Yeah.
I was either helping create them or helping design them or helping do market research to see what works, what didn't work. And
Okay, so the market research and stuff makes sense for your degree, but where do you learn how to do design and stuff? Where
well,
did
it
you
was
learn that?
mostly inputting, like giving input to
Oh,
the
okay,
designer.
yeah. So you had one.
Because
and
we would do
Yeah, okay.
kind of pilot studies.
that
Be
makes
like,
more sense.
do
Yeah.
we like this? Do we not like this? Do people like this?
Sure.
Is it working?
So you're actually using your degree.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of environmental kind of policy work, which is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Okay, so you're making money
Mm-hmm.
and your costs are low, and what happens next?
Well, this is when I start to learn how to invest. Because
Yes.
at this point, I probably had
Yeah, you got some savings.
some savings for sure. Because I had paid off $11,000 and built it back up, and still, I always had the saving mentality because I just wanted to.
But no specific goal.
But no
You're
specific
You're
goal.
like, I would need to build this up.
Yeah.
We have the scarcity mentality
Yes,
from when
100%.
you were younger. Yeah.
Always had the scarcity mentality, which is
Mm.
changing now because I'm recognizing where it comes from.
Okay, yeah.
Like, oh yeah,
It's good once you explore.
Yeah,
You're like, okay, I'm not. That's not me.
yeah.
Right? I'm different,
like,
right?
I did it. I survived. I don't live in a 2-bedroom apartment anymore. So I had the scarcity mentality, and luckily my dad, and I'm recognizing how lucky I was to have a dad who took me to the bank, and he's like. That was the first year that the TFSA came out.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, "Oh, let's go learn."
2009.
That's when I went to university.
Is that
So
when
it was
that
pretty.
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah.
when it was.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
pretty new, and he was like, "Let's go to the bank and see what this is about,
Okay.
and maybe you can apply." And so he opened my TFSA, my RRSP, and he told me that if I'd put money in, that I could never take it out until I retired.
I mean, it's
Which,
technically true.
Is a little different. But
You shouldn't.
yeah, I don't know if he told me that to just encourage
Yeah,
me to
right.
save for retirement.
Like, don't put anything in here. I would say that about an RSP account, because of the penalties.
Except for the home buyer's plan.
Except for that.
Mhm.
But that's really, it's just an agreement to use
Right.
the money and not get taxed on it and pay it back. So it really is, it causes you an issue,
Yes.
right? It's not fun, right, to have to pay money back that is yours.
Right.
But TFSA, you actually can reuse the balance just in the
and
next
he told
year.
me that for both of them, which is fine.
Yeah,
I don't know if
it's good
that's
general advice.
So he's like, put it in, and if you take it out, they're going to give you a huge fine, and it's not going to be worth it. But
well, TFSA was new at the time too,
Yeah.
so maybe he was thinking those were the rules.
or maybe he tricked me, but that's okay. It all worked out. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And of course, I went into the bank. They told me about mutual funds. I was like, great, let's buy some of these.
These sound great.
Yeah. And I had no idea, obviously. I'm like,
no,
whatever.
because what, like, your dad's saying invest because investing is
Good
better
for me.
than
Yeah.
savings.
Yes.
It's good, right? That's
Yeah.
probably what a lot of people get, like, and that's what the banks portray too.
Mm-hmm.
And technically, it is better. It's not the best option, but it's better than what you were doing.
Yes.
But there's also risk, and you probably weren't really aware of.
Well,
the
we
risks
went
too.
over
Or
the
did you?
quiz.
Okay, yeah,
you
you have to go
do
know
a
your
quiz,
client.
and
Yeah,
they're
you
like,
have to do that.
okay,
The risk assessment. Yeah.
They're like, when you plan on taking this out? I'm like, well,
Sure,
my dad
okay.
said never. So, like, I was always kind of growth, equity,
Yeah.
long term.
Sure.
And they're like, okay, buy this. And I'm like, great. And then eventually I learned you could do it yourself. So I started buying my own mutual funds without knowing
You
what
got a
I was
brokerage
doing.
account?
Direct investing.
Okay, yeah.
So, because I didn't really like going into the bank, I always felt intimidated.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking. Like, I don't understand what you're saying, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it all by myself. And now when I go in, they're like, "Oh, it seems like you have a good grasp on things." I'm like, I really just don't like talking to you, but thank you. Like,
Yeah,
I just do it all
there was
online.
a post about why millennials hate banks. Yeah, I mean, I don't like banks.
I went to the bank yesterday. They made me wait half an hour. I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, I could have done this at home, but I have a few questions that I'd rather have
Seriously.
you answer.
Like, you be there for the questions, right?
Yeah.
Not for the things that we can do online. Like, oh
Yeah.
man,
So yeah, I started investing, not knowing what I'm doing.
like a regular
and-
regular monthly
No,
investments.
so I've never done. I tried automating it,
Yeah.
but I just go in every month and do it manually because I
Okay.
want to go in and see what's going on. And
Sure.
so it works
So
for
when
me.
you say go in and see what's going on, like when you invest, what are you doing?
So I go into my accounts and
Yeah.
see the charts.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
So you're buying stocks.
I am buying some
Oh,
stocks
and
now
some mutual funds. Yeah.
But I just got into stocks. For about 6 or 7 years, I was investing exclusively in mutual funds because
Yeah.
I didn't know any better.
And you wouldn't be going in and looking.
I didn't really
just buying the
rebalance
ones
anything.
that people said.
Yeah, I remember reading like Money Sense, like top 10
Okay,
mutual
yeah.
funds. I'm like,
And-
yeah, this one sounds good. And
Okay.
like getting that as guidance, but not really doing any research on
What made
was
you
going
want
on.
to start though? Getting involved in it. more?
Probably a chart that my dad showed me.
Yeah.
And it was one of those like classic, like if you start investing at age 20, look
Yeah.
at this exponential rate. If
Sure.
you start investing at age 30 for the same amount, like $1,000 or $500
Yeah.
a month, look at the difference. And then even though I didn't understand, like I dropped grade 12 math, so I'm like, I don't know half these concepts.
Sure.
He made it super simple. He pretty much explained like cash drag and inflation to me in like basic terms.
Okay.
And he's like, you want your money to work for you, because if you just let it sit there, it's
gonna
just
lose its
deflating and
value,
losing
yeah.
value. I'm like, okay, like I kind of get that. And I'd be worried, like, oh, what if I lose it? He's like, you're not in the stock market. Like, you're not going to
you're
lose all your
balanced.
money
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then, like, end up in this Great Depression and never get it back. He's like,
Yeah.
you're fine as long as you put money in and just look at it every now and then. And even if it's going down, just wait it out. It'll come back eventually. I was like, okay, like, I guess I can do it. And
Okay.
it was good. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you go in every month with a set amount or?
So usually it was not a set amount, to be honest. It was like, oh, I have a few $100s. Let's just put this in here. And
Okay.
none of my strategies should be followed by people because they don't make sense, but they've worked for me.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're involved, and it seems like you're looking at things. So when you say you're looking at charts, you're looking at where they've been and maybe seeing where they might go.
yeah, definitely just looking at some past performance
returns, yeah.
and then did a tiny bit of research, like, okay, what are some holdings in here and what do they kind of
Okay.
look like?
Yeah.
So just really basic understandings.
What
But
about fees?
yeah, that's
so you
where
haven't
I
got
learned
there yet.
later.
Okay, so your mutual funds, and for how long did you just stick with the mutual funds?
So 6 or 7 years, I
Yeah.
was just mutual funds. And then I was in a position where I needed to find a place to live really quickly. And I didn't have any furniture. I didn't really have anything.
You still working for City of Hamilton?
At this point, I'm working for a provincial agency.
Okay, so you got
I've moved
a
on.
step up?
Yeah.
promotion
So
sort of?
full-time kind of, yeah,
Still in
adult
your
job.
environmental
This time I was doing
stuff?
research and analysis on the labor market.
Okay,
So studying like employment and unemployment.
Geography.
Yeah.
That's all connected, right?
A little bit.
To that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely had some interesting experiences.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when I took some time off to travel, I was working as like a beekeeper's assistant, and I was also working as like a compost facilitator. Like
Okay. So when do you take time off to travel?
I was in university.
Okay. So that you mean to go into Vancouver? No.
Yeah.
Okay. And in that 6 months?
Yeah, in those 6 months, I was doing like volunteering and internships, and
So
then
you've had those cool.
so I just had
things.
kind of weird jobs, and then I took 4 months off. I went to 14 different countries, and I went across
Ooh,
Canada,
Nice.
working on farms and like volunteering on like workaways and farms.
Can you name all the countries in like 30 seconds?
Yep, Iceland, Belgium, England, Italy, probably some other European places. Indonesia, Singapore, Hong Kong, a few other places.
A bunch of other European ones in there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
we forget because there's you can easily cross over.
I
right?
flew out of Eastern Canada and flew into Western USA and Mexico, and then flew back up. So I went around the world.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And you said that was after university or no?
That was in between university.
Oh, okay.
My timeline is
Yeah,
going to be so confusing for
It's
people.
okay.
But
No, but that's cool. So you've had some world travel experience. Were you working at all during that?
I wasn't working. I remember
4
I
months?
had some money saved up, so the whole trip cost about $6,000 because
wow,
I was
yeah.
like couch surfing and
Oh, cool.
hitchhiking and
Yeah.
really just not paying a lot of money on things.
That's
So-
awesome.
And meeting up with friends. So
Flights mostly is what
Yeah.
the cost was, right?
yeah, so it worked out really well. But that's another point because I was a very linear person up until high school. Like I was really academically focused and really like directed towards a career and a full-time job, and then
Sure.
something in me broke, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to follow this conventional path. Like I want to take time off, and I want to just explore other things and try weird jobs that just for fun.
Do you know now why that is? That you
I think it's because I honestly had the money to do it.
Yeah, okay.
So, all throughout school, I was working full time. So I
Mhm.
always had money. So I felt like I could take these risks and I could take time off because nothing was really dependent on like whether or not I could afford it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I can take time off to go travel because I have money in the bank to do this.
And
so
when I come back, I'll figure out what to do. Yeah. So that didn't cause you anxiety though.
It did,
Okay, yeah.
but I still did it.
You still did
I remember
it.
being super worried and
Well, good for you.
anxious and like grinding my teeth and having like panic and anxiety attacks. But I just thought like, well,
I'm going to do that
I'm still going to do it because even though I'm anxious if I don't do it,
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
anxious
right.
if I do. So I
Okay.
might as well have anxiety about going on a cool trip.
Hey, good for you for tackling it like that and not just hiding away, right?
Yeah.
Which is what some people have to do to deal with anxiety
Mhm.
and stuff. You've had a bunch of different
Yeah.
work experiences and perspective from traveling.
Right.
And now you're working for the provincial government.
Mm-hmm.
Were we talking about the next step in investing? I think?
Yes. So I was looking
Yeah.
for a house now. I'm working
Yes.
for the provincially funded agency, and I'm looking for a house and
To buy?
to buy.
Okay.
So long story short, I was living with my ex at the time. We broke up. I had already got rid of everything because he had everything. So when
Oh.
I was looking for a place, I'm like, great, I have like
Ground
5
zero.
garbage bags of
Okay.
clothes. And I was sleeping on like a blow up mattress at my friend's house because I was in between houses.
Sure.
And he was flipping the house. So I
Oh.
had to go from like room to room on my blow up mattress. And like every time they
Oh,
redid a
man.
room. Yeah, it was kind of a rough time in my life. So I was at this crossroads, like, my life is pretty horrible right now. Like, what do I want to do with my life?
I mean,
like,
we all have something like that. Like, hopefully it's not really bad and it's
Yeah.
just some kind of crisis. But
yes.
sometimes we need a crisis.
Yes.
right?
And it was. I look back and I'm like, wow, that was a rough time. But it led me to my new stage in my life. And so I'm like, okay, I need to obviously find a place to live because I can't be living on this blow up mattress.
Yeah.
And this is getting like depressing
Yeah.
because this is a rough life. So I'm like, I don't have anything. I'm starting from scratch. Like, should I rent? And I have to furnish everything and, I'd have to start from scratch anyways. Or I have money in the bank. Should I just buy a place? And so my friend who had just bought the house connected me with his real estate agent. We started looking for houses. Everything I could afford was pretty dodgy. And I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be my life.
Okay, yeah.
But then eventually I found like this gem in downtown Hamilton.
Really?
That I love. It had been flipped 3 years before, so it was all pretty new, but it had no driveway and it had like a small backyard. And I was like, great, I don't have a car. I don't need a backyard. Like, this is great for me. And it's on a bus line and it's close to work. So I put an offer in, and this was like a Monday. And then by next Wednesday, I had my keys.
Wow.
So it was like the fastest turnaround in history.
Now you have a house.
Now I had a house, but it was a crash course on personal finance and like navigating life. Like, they're like, do you have a lawyer? I'm like, no. Like, do you have your insurance? I'm like, I don't have anything. I don't know what I'm doing.
They figured out all the closing costs.
Everything was just such a chaos.
Did you have all this money though?
Yeah. So I had a 20% down payment because I've been working and doing all this stuff and saving and investing.
Okay.
This is where I learned about the fees.
Yes.
Because I go to the bank and I'm like, I'm planning to buy a house. And then this is also where I learned about credit unions and mortgage brokers. So I am learning so much because I didn't know anything. I just knew how to save. I'm like, save. As long as you do that, you're good. Which is not
bad. And exactly. But
there's so much more than just saving.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just save and do like, when I wasn't saving strategically, I don't automate things. I didn't invest strategically. I just saved and hoped for the best. So it paid off though. So I go to the bank and I'm like, I need to take out all this money for a down payment. The guy, my advisor there, was like, why do you have so many mutual funds? Like, what are you doing?
Would you buy different ones every time?
Tons of different ones. I had like 15 mutual funds.
I love it.
And I just thought like, they all had different things. He's like, you're over diversified. Like, you have too many of the same things. Yeah. Like, you're paying high fees. And he taught me about the management expense ratios.
So who's this guy?
His name was Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Work for the bank.
He works for RBC.
And he told you were paying high fees.
Yes, he's so nice.
Way to go, Steve.
Yeah, he was a good guy. I don't know where he is now.
Diamond in the rough, Steve.
He was so nice. And he sat down and taught me, like, you need to look at this number and you need to look at this and front loading and all this other stuff.
So were you paying deferred sales charges or did you have one?
Oh, yeah. I was paying. I don't even want to know how many fees I was paying.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you had the standard high management expense ratios, but also other sales charges.
Oh, probably.
Okay.
I didn't know what I was paying.
Yeah. Okay. What Steve do for you?
Well, I mean, Steve said, please don't do this anymore. He's like, here are some things to read when you plan on buying your own things. Yeah. And he just made some adjustments. And anyways, I had to take out all my money anyways for the house.
You're cashing it all out.
Cashing it all out. I was left with, I think, $2,000 in the bank.
So you didn't even know that, you weren't really saving intentionally for a down payment, though.
No.
Right?
And so it wasn't all in the same accounts, which was a huge problem because I needed the money in 5 days.
That's tough.
So I had money in RRSPs, TFSA, a checkings account, a savings account, another institution. So we had to pool it all together. And they're like, how much?
And do home buyers plan.
And do the home buyers plan, which I also didn't know about. Because people spend, months looking for houses. I spent 3 weeks and then had my house the 4th week.
Yeah.
So my crash course. You were thinking of looking into it later? I was learning.
But you got a course,
as I was doing this, I was learning. And so they're like, oh, how much do you want to use for your home buyers plan? I'm like, I just read about this. I don't know the details. Do whatever. Luckily, like, my agent and I had some good heart-to-hearts since she knew kind of where my headspace was at and knew how, like, rough my life had been for a few months. Yeah. So she, like, handheld me the entire way.
Awesome.
And it was amazing. She connected me with everyone that I needed. She gave me all their names. She's like, go talk to this person. Go talk to this person. And don't do this and do this. And so, yeah, that saved me because I do not know what I'm doing. And I was doing everything by myself. Like, I was just...
Yeah, this is just you, right?
Just roaming around town with my agent, trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life.
Were you reading blogs? When did you start writing?
Yeah, I started reading some blogs.
Did you start writing later?
I started writing later. Yeah. It was all during this time because there was so much jargon thrown at me. So I'd Google, like, first-time homebuyers plan.
So you're looking all this.
Pros and cons of mutual funds.
And what year is this?
This is 2016.
Okay,
so 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of content on the internet about this stuff.
Yeah.
Did you settle on anything specific? Like, did anything really help you? Like,
definitely Money Sense. I found that like super easy to read and writers, kind of. Yeah. I'm like, okay, got it.
Yeah,
and I liked all their features on other people.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, okay, this person's a bit of a mess too. Like,
okay,
like,
good. It's good to see, right?
It was good to just see that, and everything was such a patch job for me though. And that's why I started writing my blog, because I'm like, I started writing about everything I learned. I'm like, guys, if you wanted to buy a house, just so you know, you need to know these things.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And then people just ask me questions, because it was also so fast. Like, whoa, you have a house now? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it all started when I started saving money and living low. And they're like, oh, where did you get this money from? Or like, must be so lucky your parents paid for this. I'm like, listen, I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My parents did not pay for
this. Is my money?
Yeah. So I'm
like, sure, it was locked up in mutual funds, but still.
That's what saved me, because my dad said not to touch it.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the bank, they're like, you can use this money, this money, this money. I'm like, that's everything I have.
So they told you that you could use up to $25,000. And what did you have? $25,000 in RSP account?
I think I had like $15,000 in my RRSP, and then another like 40 or something. Yeah, 40,000 in my. So I had a total of like $55,000.
Because some people get surprised when, even if they do know about the home buyer's plan or they think they can access it, they get surprised when they find out there's a limit.
Well, I got a little bit dinged because I had learned about it, and I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea. I'm going to transfer money into my RRSP. And then they're like, you actually can't use this because it hasn't been in there for 90 days. Yeah. And that's worked out for me as well, because that's the only money I had left when I bought the house. So
you use other money instead of that money?
Well, I used parts of the RRSP, but not the new stuff that I had transferred in. I transferred in like $3,000.
You didn't need the new stuff?
I mean, I definitely needed it for like furniture.
Sure, for other...
to pay for my life. But
it's locked in there.
It's locked in there
You knew
now.
you had to pay a penalty if you take it out.
Yeah, so I'm building it back up. And I built it back up in a year because I thought I had to pay it back.
Well, no, but you do, but
I know,
not right
but
away.
over 15 years. But this is what I mean. Like, I'm over-prepared all the time. Because I have this scarcity mindset that I'm going to get dinged. I can't like afford to pay a fine.
It's not bad. I mean, but unless that took money away from something you really needed.
No. And I have a good balance of extremes. Like I'll save, and then blow it all on a 4-month trip. And then like do it again. Like save, and blow it all on a house. And then just like keep building it up. So yeah, I just fluctuate a lot.
So 2016, you get your house. Mm-hmm. You got a mortgage now.
I had a mortgage now. Fun time.
And you learned about how that, how did all the closing costs and stuff work? So
none of that was surprising.
That. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a lawyer, you paid the legal fees.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't have to pay, and we should talk about this, is insurance, because you had your 20%.
Yes. So I paid 20% down. And I remember being kind of like, if I pay 20%, I really don't have a lot of money left over. Yeah. But my dad kept saying, like, you don't want to end up paying fees. And again, show me charts. I'm like, okay, you're right. Which I've learned a lot more about different strategies and perspectives now. Just in terms of if you invest that money in the long run, like it might pay off. Yeah. But at this time,
nobody knows at that, though.
And also I had no time to learn.
You wanted a house.
I just wanted to live somewhere. That's and not live on a blow-up mattress.
Because you wanted to live somewhere, it's not really an investment. It actually was the best place for your money at the time because it was a benefit to you. Right?
And emotionally, too. People kind of forget sometimes when they're just doing all the numbers and charts. And I'm like, at this time in my life, I literally, all I wanted was stability and just like my own place and to come home.
More mutual funds.
And so it was a good fresh slate, too, because I took everything out.
That's good.
And started from scratch.
And when you start, so you have your mortgage. And it's obviously something that you can quite easily pay.
My mortgage is like ridiculously low. I pay, I think, $890 a month or something.
Yeah, that's great. And of course, you have some property costs. Yeah, and taxes are. How are taxes in Hamilton? Are they high?
They're super low. I think I pay like less than $2,000.
This is you don't have to volunteer any information if you're not comfortable.
If anyone wants to live in Hamilton, it's cheap. It's super cheap.
Well, so you have affordable house and you already have 20%, so you're already you got 20% equity. Because the thing about making a down payment is you're not giving that money away. You're just putting it into this house.
Putting it into a property.
And then unless the property depreciates immediately, then it's still worth that, and it's probably worth a bit more now, I'm guessing. I don't
know. I don't really look into it. It's
that's good. Just sitting
in there, and I plan on staying in that house for a while, so I'm just gonna live there happily and keep paying my bills.
You have any options to like accelerate, pay down your mortgage? Or
I did.
Do you want to do that?
So I started that, but so I doubled my contribution frequency. So I was doing it once a month, and I was doing it twice a month.
Okay, cool.
And then I also increased the payment on my mortgage. Then I met my partner, like my current partner. I met him a year later. And he works in real estate investing.
Okay.
So he's like, why are you doing this when interest rates are so low?
Well, yeah.
Like you can be doing this, this, and this. So
there's different schools of thought, right? But for you, like you mentioned, there's emotional reasons to do certain things. Also, you're extremely debt averse, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's something to consider as well. So sure, you could make more. You could technically, if everything keeps going as it's going, right? Because we're not psychics. We don't have crystal balls, right? We can't see the future. It might be better for you to invest the extra money instead of putting towards your mortgage, but you have to consider all those other factors.
Yeah.
Do what's right for you, right?
It was good just even learning different schools of thought.
Sure.
Because I grew up just debt averse, scarcity mindset, and just work and, just kind of keep saving. But David, my partner, is in a totally different camp. His real estate world is all about like leveraging and equity and multiple properties and like all eggs in one basket. And, like, I mean, different people have different things, obviously, but these are different perspectives that I never even considered. I'm like, I would never do that. But
yeah, some people are very comfortable with leverage, and I'm personally not. I'm debt averse because I went bankrupt when I had a gambling addiction. I don't want to be in that situation again. It was terrible. I like being able to stop working and not worry about, I got a minimum payment to make on a credit card. Right? Like, I'm assuming you're in the same boat.
Yeah, my credit card is... Yeah, and David will also call me out on this because I put money on my credit card.
You prepay. I've heard about this.
And I pretty much prepay my own credit card so that I'm scared of ever missing a payment, which has never happened in the history of my credit score. But just in case I forget for some reason, I not only have it automatically paying off, I also have it like a prepaid credit card. So it's just ridiculous how like ingrained and like conditioned I am to be debt adverse. Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely a lot less risk than leverage, right? Because, I don't want to pick on David, of course, but if he were to get sick or something were to happen, he might be stuck with.
But he has me, so we'll
debt.
be good.
Yeah, exactly, right? But that's the thing about debt, right? Is it's only good if you do continue operating on the same level, right? And we all think we're infallible, so nothing's ever going to happen. I'm always going to be able to do it. Just like you said when you went on your trips, like I'll come back and I'll make the money back. But it was possible that you would stop being able to do that somehow, right?
Yeah, that would have been rough.
Right, exactly. And so, that's one of the reasons. And I guess it's hard to know unless you've, been through something where you had to keep servicing debt with no money. That's hard for people to understand until they're in it. And I don't know if we can actually teach them, and hopefully nothing happens to them.
Yes.
And it's totally fine, but it does happen to some, and then they're in a pretty bad place, right? Like we'll go on a vacation and then I'll start my job up again in January and we'll be good. And then you get laid off.
Yeah. And for a long time, I felt like I had no one else to fall back on. So it's like, well, if I'm screwed and I'm alone. Like no one is going to bail me out. My parents are going to bail me out. My family can't bail me out. Like I can't mess around. Like I have to have everything under control. Yeah. Because I'm on my own trying to figure out like how to manage my money. I mean, we're all in a good place now. So I think if something did happen, I'm sure my parents could help me now. But I grew up for so many years like not seeing that. So.
Well, you have a really good perspective of, like Thanks. No debt. No debt is always good in my books, unless the debt is helping you, of course, which is what a mortgage is. Right. And it's also collateralized debt too. So it's tied to an asset. It's not really technically consumer debt, which is just sitting there by itself with nothing to potentially pay it off, nothing to sell to cover it, even partially. Like there's always a chance you sell your house for less than whatever the mortgage is.
That's what I always thought. Right? Like if something horrible happens, I'll sell my house and move back in with my parents or live in student housing or do something. Like I could just figure it out.
The worst case scenario would be somehow, and not with your 20% down payment, but like if you somehow did a 5% and then the market just crashed and now it all went down 6%, then you sell the house at a loss. these are very rare situations. But for you, since you already put 20% down, it's very unlikely that it's ever going to be, worth less. It wouldn't be a surprise to you. It would be like, oh, the markets are going down for a while and it's coming, right? You would know that. So you started the website. So what is the website called?
Right. So I started, first it was actually called Hammer Home because it was really about just housing.
Yeah.
So it was like living in the Hamilton, called The Hammer. It was about how to buy a house and how to renovate your house. Because I also decided to take a course on how to fix my house. So I was doing like the electrical work.
Yeah, you got to do all this yourself.
And, also I had no money at this point because all of it was in the house. So I'm like, okay, great. Like I need to do things to the house and I'll just
So you can do all the plumbing in your house? Or
I wouldn't say I can do the plumbing. It was like a 6-week course for new home buyers.
Sure.
So really it was more about actually teaching you what to tell the contractor when they come in, like,
so you don't have to pay for too much,
or you can
understand.
I know you can just put a little you can just tighten
just
it.
Needs a new washer. Yeah, exactly.
But I did do the electrical with my godfather, who's an engineer. So I was like, okay, that'll be cool. And I did like some drywall and I painted the whole house.
That's super great.
Also, I bought all the paint that was like the neglected paint that was miscolored.
Hey,
I'm like, this will do. It was 50% to 75%
Did you just mix it all together? Or?
No, I just all my rooms are like different colors.
Nice.
Like nothing in the house matches. But it was all on sale, so what you gonna do?
Hey, this is and so you started writing about all this too.
Yeah, so that's what I was blogging about. And then about like a year in, everything was pretty much done and settled. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what else to write about because I already wrote about my house and I'm not doing anything else on it. So I went through a lull where I was just writing about random things that were happening in my life, but people kept asking me about like, how did you afford to buy a house and how do you make your payments and how much do you pay every month and like how much is insurance? I'm like, okay, here's the information. Like, I don't care. And I wish somebody had told me the information because I'm like, why can't you just tell me how much you're paying in insurance so I know how to plan?
No, everyone keeps it all close to the chest.
Like, I get some things are private and that's fine, but I feel like everything I share is just like,
we could look it up.
Okay, you can look it up and find it, but also here's the easiest thing to do. I'll just give it to you.
Exactly.
Because it was so much patching information together to try to figure out like how much I was going to pay on a mortgage, how much my insurance was going to be, how much the closing costs were going to be. Like, can someone just tell me that all in like in one small package of information?
That's why I like sites like RateHub. The calculators.
Yes.
Were you using those at the time?
Everything
was
such a blur.
That? Yeah.
Probably afterwards and a little bit in the middle I was finding some calculators, but I wasn't spending a lot of time on them. I did a lot of my own spreadsheets.
Okay, yeah.
So I have a pretty analytical kind of mind and I can see, like, I know how to use Excel pretty well. I have like Excel training. So I'm like, okay, these are pretty basic numbers, just like this plus this plus this. What's the total and how much do I have left over? So I had a few different scenarios of like 5% down, 10% down, 20% down. And like, if my amounts are this much, and this much.
So you made one of your own.
Yeah.
You didn't need RateHub.
No, I
just took theirs and I made it into an Excel so I could customize it.
Yeah, I just customized a lot of things.
But I used it to check my numbers to see if my formulas were good.
That's the thing. I don't really know all the formulas. I'm pretty basic.
Some of them are complicated, like the land transfer tax ones.
Right.
Some of them are a little more complicated because they're based on variables changing, right?
Yeah, I don't know
that. And the insurance,
stuff.
CMHC, you don't have to worry about that. But if you paid at 5%, you would have had to pay mortgage insurance.
I just kind of ballparked, and also same with all my trips. I ballpark, and I always overestimate.
Yeah, okay.
So I come in way under. I'm like, okay, I'm good. So I'd rather overestimate. Like, I inflate all my numbers because I just think like, what if it's so much higher and I didn't plan for this? So, yeah.
So people are asking you about all this, like all about your home stuff or other general, like, how do you afford this or how do you save money and that kind of stuff
all
too?
Of that, but in relation to the house.
Yeah.
Like, how did you save that much money? You know, because I was 24 at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I bought this house and everyone on Facebook had seen all my travels and they're like, how do you have all this money to travel? And how do you have all this money to buy a house? And how do you have this money to do this? I'm like, well, step one, I lived in a student house for 3 years paying $300 and I was making salary. Even if I wasn't, I'd still be saving that much. Step two, I don't have a car. So I just walk everywhere, bike everywhere, bus everywhere. Step 3, I learned how to invest. Even if I didn't know what I was doing, I still did it, and it still worked out. So I just kind of start writing about that. And people were like, okay, this is relatable, and you are not using jargon because I don't even know it.
I don't have the jargon.
I'm like,
you don't want it.
I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to read that stuff anyways. I'm like, I looked at this chart and look at this little bubble, and this is what it said. And we were like, awesome. Oh, okay. Like, I can do that. And so it just kept growing, and it's been really fun so far because I just think back like, yes, this is what I would have wanted. I would have like wanted to read this. I would have wanted to see this, and I would have wanted someone to talk to about this instead of me just navigating this world by myself, super stressed out all the time because I had no idea what was going on. And every time I met with someone at the bank or the law office or any like adult in the industry, I was so intimidated and overwhelmed, and I was not understanding anything they were saying. Like, I'm just thinking about all the things I have to do. I wasn't even in that headspace. I'm like, yeah. They're like, sign here. I'm like, I'm so stressed out. Like,
so is that how you came up with the title for the website?
So eventually, it took me like a year because all of the handles were taken and all, I had so many good ideas.
Yeah, I bought investwisely.ca in 2009 or 2008. Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I was just speculating for some reason.
Right.
I don't know. I had this thing, but like I got super lucky to get
had some foresight
those.
though.
Maybe. my it's not really like you have to sort of interpret it because it's not like I talk about investing. It's like invest your money wisely in whatever it is you do. Like I'm not talking about investments specifically. I do sometimes. But specifically, I can't talk about specific investments because the OSC does not like that. But you're right. It's really hard to find, or you do a .io or whatever you can get, but nobody wants it. Do you do .com or .ca?
.com.
Yeah, so .coms are really hard to find.
Yeah, so I found ambitiousadulting.com.
Which I like.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good name.
Because it really is personal finance is kind of the main focus because that's what I had a really hard time trying to figure out what to write about because I traveled a lot too. So I'm like, I want to write about my travels. But then I would go months or years, months without traveling.
You got to travel all the time to do that.
Okay, well, 7 months ago when I went on this trip, this is where I ate.
Like what I did.
So, and I just don't even have like the patience to be an Instagram model. I'm like, look at this, guys. And it's like, what is that? I'm like, oh, it's a sloth in the bush.
And you're already writing. You like writing.
I like writing. I'd already done a ton of writing and so it was just fun. I was writing all these blog posts and then I started a Facebook group and it was like mostly just my friends being like, how do we do this? How do we do this? And it just kept growing. So it's a pretty fun, active Facebook group and I like having professionals in there too.
Right.
So it's like investors and people who work at banks and lawyers. And
these people that you've met or you know?
Yeah. Or I'll just ask my friends, like, do you guys know anyone who is an investor or a real estate mogul or someone? Like, add them to the group. And so people, because I just want to facilitate, like, I am not in a position to give people advice. Yeah. But I want to make sure that people are connecting with the right people and also I'm blocking any like spammers or any kind of scammy people or any any inkling of someone trying to sell something, like get out of here because I'm so protective of like my group because I want everyone to grow and learn and ask questions and have like the resources to get that information, and I just want to facilitate that discussion. So it's been really cool.
And so where are you working now?
So now I'm self-employed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just quit my job a week ago.
Yeah. Wow, awesome.
Yes,
okay.
I quit my job. So I was working
for you.
Thank you. I worked in government for 7 years in 2 different agencies. And I got to this point because I was doing so much side hustling too. This is a whole other
can you briefly
episode.
Talk about
so I was maybe
pick a couple?
Yeah. I was doing data and analysis for the labor market. And I was like loving that because my brain is so focused on stats and numbers. And even though I wouldn't even say I'm a numbers person, I just understand what I have to do. But I don't know like
You're
the formulas and stuff. Yeah. Just I'll analyze it. So I was doing that, but I was definitely missing like this creativity. I was used to working in like farms and kind of doing a lot of marketing for the city. And I kind of want that part as well. So I started doing social media management for different businesses. Okay. Yeah. So when I was in my co-op, City of Hamilton heard like we should be on social media.
I heard about Twitter.
Yeah, like what is this? Blogging. And I remember like creating the blog for them and creating the like running the accounts. And at the time, every department could run their own things.
Okay.
Now they have like an actual communications
Yeah,
person who's like trained to do this.
hub,
but yeah, at the time they're like, okay, well, still kind of new for businesses and corporations. So get this intern to do it. She seems competent.
Oh, no.
And so I was competent. I never let the city down. You're welcome. But yeah, so I would just kind of go online and tweet and do this stuff.
Okay.
So I
you
really
got
liked
your
that.
experience
And
there.
yeah.
You know how to make content.
I know how to make
on
content
a daily basis.
I know how to engage with people. I'm hip millennial. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. This isn't that hard. So I remember I went to a business. I'm like, what's your Instagram? I want to follow you guys. And they're like, oh, we don't have that. It's too complicated. We don't have someone to do it. I'm like, oh, I could just do it. And they're like, how much? I'm like, give me a second. I'll email you with my quotes.
And look on Google.
So yeah, that kind of just kind of grew, and I kept getting clients, and I was just making like enough money to save and sustain myself. And I did that for 3 years, and I got to a point where I was just so spread thin. And I also helped develop and launch an online course, which was super successful. And I'm like, I feel like I can just do this full time. And
you know how to do this.
I know how to do this. I also have the patience to learn. Yeah.
Just for various clients?
For various clients. Yeah. So I already had a client base. And I was turning clients away. Okay. I'm like, I don't have time for this. And so came to a crossroad. This was a big deal for me because all I wanted was stability growing up. I just wanted a full-time job.
It's tough to make that switch. Yeah. When you have that mentality. Yeah.
I had a mortgage, and I'm like, I don't know. But it was like maybe 3 or 4 months. And I had to keep reminding myself, like, Liz, you've taken huge risks before by leaving school and going to travel and do this stuff. Yeah. And you just always find a way to make it work.
That's
so
right.
I'm like, you can do this. You're not jumping into the unknown. You're literally jumping into the hands of clients who are waiting for you to just scale up.
That's different, right? Yeah.
Go for it. And everyone around me was super supportive. And
great.
So it worked out. But I'm now self-employed and trying to navigate that life.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have savings as well.
Yeah.
Right?
I saved like a year of my salary.
That's amazing.
So I would never...
That's what I did as well.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
A whole year?
I saved I have a year of liquid stuff, and then I have a whole bunch of other stuff that I could get access if I needed.
Right.
Right. But I made sure that I had like a year of actual money that I could spend that wouldn't kind of cut into any retirement savings. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's what you mean too.
Kind of.
Yeah. Because you put it into the house. You don't have your investments anymore. Right. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing, right? You could always sell your house if you needed to, in an emergency. There's always, is it nice to have that sort of cushion there?
I would say so. I don't even think about my house as equity.
Oh, yeah.
I just, I live here.
That's smart.
So.
That means you'll pay it off and you won't even know. Then you'll be like, I'm living for free.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how that happened, but yeah, that's a good way to look at it because otherwise.
I set things and forget it, and which is a good thing for
then you
money.
Focus on other things, and money seems to just come. But yeah, it's not like you have a year saved, but it's not like you need to rely on that because you're building.
I'm working. I'm making more money on my side hustles than I was in my full-time job. So I lost the salary of my full-time job, but I replaced the salary. But now I'm working to just bring it back up to the level that I had both. But
you don't need the level that you had before to survive.
No.
That was giving you extra savings. You're sort of just kind of building up more the ability to save.
Yes, again, that's exactly what it is. So I have the money for my day-to-day expenses, but not as much saving because I was saving like aggressively. Yeah. Everything from my side hustle was being saved. So.
That's a good analysis to do. Like, would you say, like, were you unhappy, like working a regular every day?
No, that was one of the biggest things. Like, I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't at this point where I'm like, I need to change my life. But I was at this point where I was like, I want more flexibility in my life. I have a lot of projects on the go that are really exciting, and working with different clients, doing different, they're all my clients are just doing cool things, and I support them on like the tech side, marketing side. So I kind of just get to jump on cool projects and just support those. So it was just more exciting. Like, I liked my 9 to 5. It was not stressful. I liked who I worked with. I wasn't at this. I walked to work. It was 5 minutes walking. Yeah. So I kind of had a really good setup. Yeah. But I just wanted some more flexibility. I wanted to travel more. I wanted to just I just wanted to travel more. That like brings it down to the
flexibility.
bottom of it.
Like, so we shouldn't be afraid of, like, even if you have it good, you shouldn't be afraid. And, you know, I'm sure there's people who will be like, well, you got a job. I wish I had a job like you, right? And you should do whatever feels right, even if one thing is going fine, right? But maybe you want to shift.
I didn't want to get to a point where my life was just miserable and horrible, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need to change.
Yeah, don't wait for that.
Because I feel like that's not a good place to be in, and you don't even grow when you're not in this place of abundance. You're just like trying to survive, and you're scraping by for anything. Yeah. I'm like, that's not where I want to get to. And one of the courses that I was helping develop was all about like personal development and it's called Exalted Life, and it was really about living your like best life, your fullest life. Yeah. And I'm like, normally I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But this was actually a really good practical course about just evaluating your needs and evaluating your values and just like, does your life align with that? Or
core values, that's my thing. Yeah, they have to align. You would add some of your values are met, but the flexibility one, right? Yeah. The freedom and freedom to travel, as you said. Freedom to, if you want to work more, you can. If you want to work less, you can, right? If you want to pay down your mortgage, you can. Right. The 9 to 5 it's great and all, but it's a little restrictive. It is restrictive. It's a little old school, isn't it?
I found that too, especially because I was doing so much work digitally and remotely for clients who aren't even here. I'm like, I can do this all from home. Like, can you just let me go to a beach in Mexico and do this? Because I'll get it done. Yeah. And it was really old school. Like, people will be like, oh, they just don't get it. I'm like, everyone in university did their own self-paced learning and education. So I know I could do it. You know, it's like I had no one. That was not a 9 to 5 and I still got it done. So it's not like I won't do a good job. That's because I'm not in the office.
Right. We don't have to go and sit 9 to 5 in university. Nobody gets marked for attendance, maybe in some places.
In some, but like if you don't do your work, you're not getting good grades. You're not going to get good grades.
It's pretty obvious, right? And why are we still stuck on this? It's this factory mentality. You know, you work the work because you have to be there to do it. It's a different world now, right?
Yeah,
if you're not in that kind of work.
Was feeling a lot of confusion around that. And also, I remember reading somewhere that 9 to 5 started because people didn't have technology at home. Like all the computers were in the office and all the phones were in the office. So you had to come in. But everything I was doing, I could do from home, from even my tablet sometimes.
Yeah, so everything was you had to operate the thing at the place. Even if you could take calls at home, it didn't make sense because that's a home phone line, and all of it's so different now. Yeah, like some home internet is better than work internet, depending on where you are. Right? It's like, I
mean, I loved working with my coworkers. I'm gonna miss that, but then I'm like,
that is the main thing.
Okay,
yes.
But also there's a lot of things that I could do without. So. Yeah. And I was working with so many entrepreneurs, so their energy was rubbing off on me as well. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I'm just going to like go do this. I'm like, they're like, can you meet me here? I'm like, no, I'm at work. Like,
I started driving Uber recently.
Oh, yeah?
Because I can.
Yeah,
because I have some time,
yeah.
You know, like nobody, I don't have to like, when I'm done, I don't have to, I gotta go to the office now. And I actually really like it. Mm-hmm. You get to talk to people and I get to talk about my website and my podcast.
Yeah, you're like,
I'm like, this is like plug. A big marketing thing, you know, if they care, if they seem to care. Freedom to do whatever it is you want and nobody decides what that is.
Totally.
Right?
And even just, recently, within the last few years, I've had like a weird aversion to crowds. Mm-hmm. So being able to go to places on off-peak hours is really amazing.
It's so good.
And even doctor's appointments. I remember having to book off time to go to a doctor's appointment and feeling awkward that I might be late because now my doctor can't see me for another half an hour. And I'm like, well, I only have this certain amount of time. And
it seems crazy to me now.
Yes,
like I had to book time off to go do something like, no,
for my life and health.
I decide that, right?
Yeah, I've only been self-employed for a week, and I already look back to that life. I'm like, how did I do that? And my friends who are full-time, I'm like, you don't know what you're missing. Like, but I mean, it's just a week, so I haven't hit like any rough patches yet. So we'll just see how that goes.
Well, I hit a year at the end of June, and I'm still doing
so far
okay.
So good.
Still doing all right.
Not eating noodles.
Still got some of the year's savings hanging out, but. We did go to Australia, so that cut it into it a little bit. But, you just keep doing a little forecast and seeing how what you need to do and how things are going. And if I got to pick up a job here and there, I like the Uber. It's
That's
great,
what my friend says.
right?
She's like, honestly, the best thing about being self-employed is that you determine your income. So if you feel like you need more money, just hustle harder.
That's right.
She's like, and you're a hustler, so you're going to just find work and yeah, you'll be fine.
And
I'm like,
I get to keep creating these awesome
Mhm.
interviews like this one. Thanks so much for coming to
Yeah.
my studio.
It's been great. Fellow Hamiltonian.
Yeah, it's really nice to have people come just walk down the street. So ambitiousadulting.com
.com.
and anywhere. What about
Oh,
Twitter?
the Facebook group?
Facebook group.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
please.
The Facebook group is where we're the most active, and that's called Personal Finance for Canadian Millennials.
Okay, I like
so
it.
if you want to learn about personal finance for Canadian Millennials, because that was the other thing, there was so much American content.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what an R Roth and an INR is, and like a R and 401k.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't want this information.
We don't need to know.
Yeah.
And okay, so say it again.
Personal Finance for Canadian Millennials
Yep.
on Facebook,
Mhm.
and all of the handles on social media are Ambitious Adults, because Ambitious Adulting was too long.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks
and,
for having me.
Yeah, let's keep it up. Keep up the personal
Ambitious
finance.
adulting.
We'll keep helping people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right.
Help you navigate the world of personal finance in a non-complicated way.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or however you get your podcasts. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. I'd love to get your feedback on this episode in my new Facebook group. To find the group, go to Facebook and search for The Personal Finance Show. Once you're approved, you'll be able to interact with me and previous guests of the show and other fans as well. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Personal Finance Show. Next week, my guest will be Glenn James, Australia's millennial money expert and host of My Millennial Money, Australia's #1 personal finance podcast for millennials.